Alrighty, so puddle flange, you need to recess it down and in, so when water flows towards the drain, it needs to be able to go seamlessly over the flange. You don't want this lip raised above the concrete. This was too large for the pipe, so I sanded this section down on a linisher carefully, and now I need to chip out a little bit more around here for this section of the flange. Okay, so this should fit in fairly nicely now. So it's still snug, but you can get it in and out, and that'll glue in nicely once I remove that little bit extra. Same idea for the 100mm. That's 100mm, this one's 80mm. 80mm is pretty rare these days, especially in new homes. You might find it on a renovation though. So we just put in the water stops. We originally planned to put in angled alley, so your L-shaped alley, but it just really wasn't working with the way that this concrete's been chipped out for the shower. It made it obviously fairly uneven. We were expecting that, but we bought the angled alley anyway, just in hope that it did work. But we just end up having to cut the angle bit off. So we just ran the jigsaw down the angled alley, and then we've fixed it worked out to be 188mm. Just evenly spaced them apart, put on a bit of sealant on the backside. With these water stops, this one along here is going to have a frame sitting over the top of that water stop, so it can protrude a little bit above the tiles. There's a whole bunch of different standards and regulations about your different scenario, and I believe you can have up to about 10mm. Your water stop can be above 10mm above your tile, but where you have your doorway, so here's going to be the door in this section, you'll have a little bit that's permanent and won't move, that won't be a part of the door, and then there'll be the hinge, and then the rest will be all door. The bit that's all door, well, there's going to be no frame. We're going to go with semi-frameless shower frame. So where the door is, there won't be a frame. So that piece in this section of the water stop needs to be a tad below the tile level, just so you can get a few mil of grout in. So it needs to be below the tile level enough that you can get a nice bit of grout in there. So look at your minimum specs for your thickness of your grout. So you want a few mil there, just to build up enough grout for it to be strong. And then we put in the water stop over here, which I think we did a little time lapse on before. So that's should be quite a nice height just to walk in on. You might feel it just a little bit because the underlay and the carpet will shrink a little bit, as in like compress when you walk on it. So now we're going on to the puddle flange installation. So I've done a test run, like a dry run, and it fits in really nice. So like we said, we've had to channel this out and sand this down to make it all fit, as we said earlier. So it fits in nice. So we'll put 4 anchors in here, and you know, that's really nice and level. So won't fit that way, the concrete's not cut enough, but yeah, that's really nice there, so that works nicely. We'll take that out. When you're doing these, you need to prime, so PVC prime that, then you glue it. And as you're doing all that, you'll put some sealant down with it. We've painted the Rio that we could see. That's all dry now. So sealant, and then you've already pre-drilled your bolts, and all that will all screw in there. So I might do a bit of time lapse now of that.
Sitting in the scrub now. You can see it looks clean. We've vacuumed it 100 times, but give it a scrub and you'll see what comes up.
When you're about to install your walls, you need to think about, is your framing complete? Is there something to mount the towel rack on if you want to mount it to something hard? Is your shower rail okay to be fixed to something? Is your niche done? Has your niche got a little bit of a fall on it? You could do that fall with probably tile glue in the tiles, but if you set it up straight away with the frame, it makes it a lot easier. Is your vanity got enough framing in its space not to be nice and solid, especially if it's wall mounted? Your mirror, is it set to the right height? We have gone here 870 up. We've added 20 mil on because that's about the height of waterproofing, tile glue, tile, and the heat mat. It's about 20 mil. So it's actually going to be an 850 mil vanity because we've got an above mounted sink. That's 115 mil. So that's the height of the vanity here. That's the height of the sink. And then the tap wear will come up even higher, and then we'll have our mirror start and mirror finish. And we've put in some more framing to mount the mirror to, because I just want it sitting on tiles and plaster. When I do framing, I tend to use screws, and I pre-drill, so pilot hole. I find it goes in a lot easier. Make sure you run your level across the front face of this area to make sure that when you're sheeting that nothing's protruding. It's not going to be hard. You're not going to make it hard to tile or give your tiler a hard time, or if you're doing it. Think about if your mirror has LEDs or something like ours does it have, is the cable in the right spot, and what hole and where would you need to put the hole when you're sheeting? They're just a few of the things that we've thought of. I'm sure there's something we've missed. If you are going to use screws when you're doing framing, just note that, yeah, they're great, but they don't have much shear tension. They will just snap. Nails will bend. So just be aware of that if you got an old Queenslander or something. I'm not sure if it moves a lot, or just have a think about that. I think it's worth noting. So test your sensor. Once you install this, you don't want to have a dud sensor. So how do you do that? Read your instructions. I'll tell you to measure the ohms, which is resistance, and you need to get it within a certain range. This one is between 8 to 12 kilo ohms. So you need to set your meter to the right settings and the right range, and then all you literally do is just go and measure your resistance. And as we can see down there, it's come up as 9.6 kilo ohms, which is within spec. So I'm really happy with that. We know we've got a working sensor. Another thing to note is maybe think of a way to tape up or secure the end of your sensor. If this ever needs to be replaced, you probably don't want this inset in the concrete. You need to be able to get it out somehow. So this will sit basically pretty much at tile level, halfway in between the concrete and tile level. Okay, you want a little bit above the concrete level so it gets an accurate measure of heat. Also, you don't want the sensor on an element. It needs to be in between two elements that are running this, so it gets an actually radiated heat, not a false read by sitting on one of the elements, as in the cable.